So, and we start with a simple poll here. What Agile tool are you currently using? And we're having some of the responses already coming in. We have some of the non-Microsoft tools listed here. And yes, that's sometimes the case. And then when tools are used outside of the Microsoft ecosystem, so we have JIRA, TFS, Pivotal Tracker, version 1, Microsoft Project, others. And we right now have 33% for JIRA, 42% for Microsoft Project. I know for a fact a lot of companies are using both and for different reasons, and we're actually going to talk about this as well. But it's interesting to see that the variety of different tools that are used for their PMO and managing the delivery workflow. I know that JIRA has different applications, not just in project, and not even the project management per se, but this is more like a agile management system with tasks and issues and stories to track. Anyway, this whole big story about Agile and Waterfall, we're going to be diving into this two concepts, and we're going to be showing you some of the cases of how we can use and blend basically the Agile methodologies of delivery with Waterfall methodologies of delivery, and how these two, on one hand, completely different approaches can actually coexist together. So, Dan, anything you want to add as far as, I know your mic is going to echo everyone. So I'm just going to start sharing my screen. So a few words about myself. Some of you already know me. Some of you already know that my name is Alex, Alex Rodov. Yeah, I have a Russian-originated last name, and I came from a country called Belarus. Some of you don't hesitate, go ahead and look it up online, because not everyone knows where this country is. Anyway, I grew up in Belarus and came to the United States as after I finished my school at engineering and mechanical engineering and computer science. So here I am standing right here, and if you have any questions about Belarus, feel free to ask me. Okay, I'll tell you everything I know. Certified Scrum Master, PMP since 2008. Since 2008, right? And Microsoft Most Valuable Professional, MVP, the fellow MVP over here with Trap. Trap is going to do the second presentation after me, or the third presentation today. So, enough about me. If anything, I'll be able to gladly talk about myself, but that's not the topic of today. All right, let's start with the 10 Agile Delivery Attributes. And I call it, sometimes I change this titled this slide a couple of times, 10 Agile Delivery Principles or 10 Agile Delivery. Let's talk about 10 things that pertain to Agile. And I'll put my own flavor to it. There is a standard for, the Agile Manifesto, whatever. I'm just going to say something about how I feel about the Agile, how I, based on my experience by working with different organizations, what is it Agile for the PMO, basically. So, no documentation. Believe it or not, there's almost no documentation. Even with the waterfall type projects, there's a problem of having a good documentation for the project. So when you're talking about Agile, it's most of the cases you will not have a good documentation. In some cases, no documentation at all. Well, good or bad, it's up to there's iterations. There's always, this good. I think this is a very good thing about Agile. It's always moving. It's always looking for better ways to do things. It's always, when a friend of mine, if you want to stay alive, you got to keep moving. You can't just sit in one place. As soon as you're stuck in one place, you're deteriorating. You're not really improving per se. You got to get up and start moving. So iterations. This is what about Agile. Make mistakes and make corrections. That's kind of continuously, spilling off of the iterations. As soon as you start moving, you got to see some bumps, you got to see some problems on the way, and you have to be able to face these problems, and you have to be able to resolve these problems. So that's the philosophy, that's the attribute of Agile. Not to afraid of those problems, hit those and make corrections. And again, some of these are fairly obvious to you guys. That's fine. We're just going to reiterate. Oh, sorry, this is my phone. Can you just face it down? I think this will shut this. Oh, works. Great. So enterprise scalable frameworks available. So it's actually fairly new. You won't see this in the manifesto. There's a safe, scalable, agile framework. There's other frameworks coming out. It's basically PMOs and organizations are trying to put the agile framework on enterprise train. It's like, okay, we were working with agile with small teams here and there, and C-level suite is basically looking at this and say, yeah, guys, you go ahead and play with your toys, play with your agile things. I still need to know how much it costs. I still need to know. I still need to plan my budget and stuff like that. But this is growing. Agile concept is really growing into enterprise. So there are certain concepts of how we actually put the agile on the enterprise train, on the enterprise track, so we can actually do some corporate financial planning using agile methodology. So some of these frameworks are available. Again, not part of today's conversation, but it's there. Ongoing application maintenance and enhancements. So in many cases, the agile is used as ongoing maintenance of certain applications that are already in place. So the fundamental difference from the project management methodology, where the project is defined as a unique endeavor, right? It's something unique that was never done before. As opposed to this, the application maintenance, we need to have another sprint to make another enhancement, right? For the same application, all over and over again. And that's for the next 5 years. So I think this is where the efficiency kind of, fades away when we, do these things like, next sprint, new enhancements. Well, how many enhancements would you have? I don't know. It's agile methodology, right? We just, go as we go. Anyway, but that's evidently the attribute that, these days for the agile. And again, I'm trying hard not to put any positive or negative connotation to what I'm just describing, because I'm going to be doing the same thing for the waterfall, and I'm going to try to do it quickly so we have more time on actually, seeing some demos. Anyway, number 6 requires discipline in managing sprints, releases, epics, themes, on and on and on and on and on. So on one hand, we're saying this is something very quickly to set up. This is something that's really easy to change. On another hand, the complexity with which we have to deal with is as complex as any waterfall methodology. So in this case, you still need to actually somehow look at the sprint and say, okay, my sprints are going to be 1 week, 2 week sprints, 1 month sprints, quarterly sprints. I've seen quarterly sprints. Well, that's agile, but just a little bit slow, but still, right? Yeah, the releases, epics, themes, and the tasks, subtasks, the list goes on and on. So there are different tools, methodologies, how to use this, how to use epics, how to use themes, how to use releases. It's up to the organization to define what is the the business value of using some of this or any of this or all of this attributes. May become expensive by going through loops of iteration. So it's basically if we don't know where we're going, we don't really know where we're going to end up at. And at some point, if we don't have anyone with a vision who actually sees far enough, like 6 months from now, where this whole thing is going, we can actually iteratively can go into the same wrong direction as if we would do this by doing this with waterfall methodology. So by doing these iterations, we still need to be able to reassess the direction in which we're going. That's the purpose of the iteration, right? And by having these loops of iteration in the same spot, we can actually stay in the same place without really moving anywhere. So it's just important to kind of have this visionary vision. Help me out. A visioner. Thank you. To actually, guide the ship, steer the ship to the right harbor. Needs to be self-corrective and blended into enterprise data. So in this case, this iterative teams and folks needs to have some of the interaction with the enterprise overall strategy. Somehow, whether it's at the leadership level or at the level where they actually use some of the tools. And again, we'll be showing in a demo how we actually can use the data from the Agile teams, data about those sprints, about issues and stories, and how this information can be blended into the enterprise and a data set where the corporate reports could be executed, and you can actually see through, not just through the waterfall pieces of data, but also gliding and penetrating the levels at the Agile teams level. So I'll show in more visual form of that. Log actual work. This is actually even more important in Agile, because in the waterfall we kind of know where things are going to be spent, when the time is going to be spent. In a waterfall and Agile methodology, where folks are changing their scope on a sprint by sprint basis, no one really knows at the end of the day where did we actually spend our time. So I see more and more Agile teams actually investing very heavily in their process to actually put the exact detailed time into where the time actually spent, where do we spend the time on, and that drives all kinds of Agile metrics like velocity. It drives all kinds of metrics like how much time do we spend on this sprint, how much time do we spend on rework, how much time do we spend on the testing, how much time, all kind of interesting metrics will come out of the actuals. Just call it actuals. In most of the cases, this is actual work, just timesheets, right? And communicate status of progress. Agile team, waterfall team, you have to at some point get on the status call and say, okay, this is where we are. We have X amount of stories. We have X amount of story points completed out of X amount of stories planned. Yada yada yada. You got to be able to communicate that. All right. So this is fairly simple, fairly straightforward, fairly high level. So I apologize for the high level, but I didn't want to dig too much into Agile. Any questions, thoughts about this? All right. Waterfall delivery attribute should be even more basic than than Agile. Agile is fairly new. The waterfall has been around for a while. Plan before execute. So we kind of think in a way that, when I say we, I mean waterfall concept is we have to plan, then execute. Plan, then execute. Well, the nature would tell us, well, yeah, if you attempt this famous example of the project everybody teaches on is the waiting planning, right? You need to plan the waiting, okay? If you don't plan the waiting, it's not going to go well, right? So some of the projects, just by nature, will require waterfall approach for them, okay? And I see a lot of smiles, but so I hope these smiles are not because of the waiting didn't go well. Project governance and approvals. Each project would have to have this stamp by the manager, by the C-level, saying yes, approved this project. You got this budget. You can go ahead and do that. Some sort of a governance, some sort of a approval process has to be in place. Close relationship to resources and budgets. Although Agile teams sometimes are in purpose isolated from the external communications about budget, about resources, about things like that, because some of these teams are actually doing work that is pertain to high-tech security or mathematical equations. They have to do their work, and no one needs to know how do I report to my project, or how much time did I spend on this or that. This is more like a management layer, right? So from the management layer, the waterfall projects are very close to those budgets, very close to those resources, and not like the Agile projects in many cases. There are some standards. There are some institutions, there are some organizations that are trying to come up with the standardized way of doing the waterfall project. Although the PMI is doing the Agile too, but there's variety of those schools of thoughts for Agile. For the waterfall, there's a whole standard institutions that are out there to standardize the methodology. Documentation, compliance, and audit. So these are the attributes. We do have a lot of, much more documentation in the waterfall than the Agile. And again, well, some of these attributes for the waterfall will be the same for the Agile, and this is where it's going to be interesting to look at what are those matching ones in here. So there are known methodologies on different tracking methods. Some of them are mandated by the government for the government projects. So let's say each government project would have to go through the earned value analysis on a regular basis, especially large ones. And that actually increases the efficiency, at least from the budget tracking perspective, because the finance works a little different in the government than in a private sector. The private sector, the finance is self-managed. In the public sector, finances are basically not their own finances. So in this case, the way it's spent is a little bit different. So I'm not going to get too much in there. Adopting additional Agile or other frameworks when it fits. So within the waterfall delivery of the project, you can see that there are some parts of that project may actually use the Agile methodology. So it's like a bigger ship. Within the bigger ship, you have smaller ships, and they can actually do different methodologies as long as they deliver in time within budget, which is fundamentally would fall into the waterfall kind of concept. So that's an interesting one. Identify key issues and risks of the project. So we always have almost every time we have this framework of issues and risks. And basically, this is the center of that communication on a regular basis, whether it's waterfall or agile project. When you have your status report, the only reason why you actually put the status report is this: what is the problem? And that's what you say. The issue is with this project is such and such, and that's real. That's the real purpose of the status report. Well, not to say that yes, you show some green. If you're doing okay, no one is really interested in that information. Well, especially the project manager, who's interested to actually highlight and actually escalate things before the end of the project, so he can turn green when it closes, when the project ends. This is where you can be green. You can be red in the beginning, you can be red, you can be yellow in the middle, but if you're still red at the end, this is where it's really bad. This is really where you really hit the smiles from this, right? So at the end of the day, your track record is going to be look at the end of the project. Did you deliver in time? Did you deliver? Right? If you did deliver, no one would care about red or yellow. So that's project manager's tool to communicate this information. Anyway, manage project data by updating schedules, logs, key decisions, etc. So we have a lot of different things that we need to document, and this is waterfall methodology of having the issues log, risk log, etc. And then report and communicate. Again, report and communicate. Communication is, in this case, would be the key factor. All right, enough of this. We just talked about Agile, Waterfall. So let's, and I stole some of this from Dan's slide, just, use the concept. So the Waterfall is like, in many PMOs, Waterfall is still the centric way of planning ahead, planning your budget, yearly budget, 2-year budget, quarterly budgets. So that's still kind of the center of the planning mechanism. Then we have this Agile teams where they're Agile planning. You can do the planning to a degree, but this is some of the information that gets blended with the waterfall. And we also have the enterprise data. And enterprise data, it could be financial data, the HR data, the information about the market, the information, the external information that actually gets blended into basically what we call the blended framework. And again, instead of tomorrow, so it was waterfall, now it's Agile. Tomorrow someone's going to come up and say there's something new. This is a new methodology. It will have to be blended. It will have to be, aligned with the enterprise somehow, and provide the leadership some information so they can actually make some decisions. So this is very conceptual. Let's start getting into, how we actually can do this. Well, a couple more steps before we do that. How am I doing on time? 20 minutes? About 20? Yeah. And I call this slide the needle. The needle. And, it may have different connotations, but let's just, hear my point. So we have all these kinds of things that we're dealing with. We have project schedules, right? We have resources. We have different rates. We have releases. We have sprints. We have sprints, releases. We have all kinds of waterfall and Agile and whatever else, whatever other attributes we're dealing with. So the needle, right? Ethics. So the needle. Somehow we need to have someone and actually one by one connect all these things. And what I call move the needle, right? So we just need to, let's say, we have, and the previous title for this was that I had was financial needle. I'd say I need to know from the financial perspective how all of these things are tying together. Like how, from the financial perspective, okay, someone comes up and they talk in language called Agile language. I don't understand this language. I need to know how much money, from the financial needle perspective, I need to know how much money we spend on this, and this, and this, and right. And overall, I know that the whole number. So how do you split this into different buckets? So I need to be able to have the financial needle. I need to be able to do this through the HR needle. I need to know how many people work on this thing, and how many skills do we have in an organization? How many skills we're lacking in an organization? How much more we need to? How many more skills? How much more skills we need to, enhance in our organization in order to be able to increase the efficiency? So we move the needle and we basically connect all these things, regardless of whether it's waterfall or agile, and then we create some structure, and we turn this into basically a database. I know there's some data people here, and we're basically somehow classifying this information. Well, not somehow. I don't know exactly how we do this. We classify this information and bring this into structure where we can actually report on that. So, PMO data in a more structured way. So we got Agile data, we got PMO data. So we're trying to do, we're bringing this PMO, we're bringing this Agile data into the PMO data system, into the PMO data set. So by bringing this over, we also have, so we bring this over, we also have the enterprise data, and the enterprise data could be, and then this is an example, the HR data, finance, and corporate data. So it sits in different applications. It sits in different Agile tools, Project Online, Project Server, 3 project servers, 5 different Agile tools. The big organizations, people go really crazy. And we've seen a lot of different, numbers, like 10 different Agile tools within one organization. Can you imagine that? And they're all protecting these organizations, these tools, because this is the tool of their choice. Anyway, it all sums up, it all rolls up into the enterprise integrated data model. So, and the integrated data model would allow you basically to, and Trev will talk about this in a greater detail, since once you have this structured enterprise integrated data, you can actually report on data. You can actually take the pieces from each of these Agile tools, PMO, Project Online, BPM tools. You can take some of the data from the finance, HR, or corporate, and put some good information in front of the right people and have them make the right decision. And this is all driven off of the real information. Next slide is actually, I'm going to skip this one. I'm going to go to the demo. But any questions about this so far? Okay. Yes, exactly. The question was why does it call it integrated data model? And let's say there is a project server or project online and JIRA. Does it mean that the integrated data model would actually consist the data from both sources? Yes. And it's not just a source, because there's already known, tools that you can use to connect different data elements from different systems. It's The technical part is actually easy. The technical part to connect data sources is easy. The cornerstone of this is to connect the right pieces on the different methodologies. So let's say in the Agile world, there is a project, there's epic, there's something else, there's theme, there's version, and in the project PPM's world, that may have to, may be mapped to the project differently. So you may have the project in EPM where it actually represents the version that we're working on the Agile side, and that version could be theoretically spread among multiple epics or multiple themes or multiple sprints. So we have like 3 or 4 major connection points where we offer PMOs to connect the Agile and Waterfall by doing the project-to-project connection, or by doing the project-to-epic connection, or by doing the project to any other custom attribute on the Agile side. So it's basically the first 2, and the third is combination of any other custom field. So, shall I do the demo now? Okay, all right. So what I did, I prepped a simple project. So this is my 007 aircraft design project, my stealth project, my, I like the aviation theme, so you can see a lot of things that comes with aviation. Anyway, so this is just a project. This is just a simple project. I have a simple schedule. It's a PPM Microsoft Project Online. Okay, it's right now it's live. So, and also I have this environment, which is JIRA. Sorry, Microsoft. I just have this JIRA sample ready, and I didn't do the TFS, so I apologize for that officially. Okay. Okay. Thank you. So this is Agile Tool. It's called Agile Tool, right? And this is a typical storyboard, and I have St. Louis book story. I have St. Louis chapter, St. Louis paper, St. Louis local news, St. Louis Post Dispatch. Is it an actual newspaper? Okay. St. Louis magazine, St. Louis story. So I have all these kind of stories, right? And I can say, well, right now I have the team, Agile team, and they working on this, and I need to basically grab this information into my PPM space. Well, they started this project, or maybe there's it's all new, right? It's all new. And like the two together. So they have just started this. They just put the list of the stories together, and now it's worth of bringing this over to the PPM space so we can actually also track this within the PPM. So, as project manager, from the project online perspective, I'm going back to my project. Oops. So this is my project. I need to now bring information from JIRA, from Agile Tool, to my project. So I'll go to the 60i integration link. And if you would be interested in what is it 60i and what does it do, Daniel will tell you the whole spiel. I'll just show you how it works because we don't have too much time for this. So this is the interface of our 60i application that is basically working on the integration. But it's very simple. What I'm going to do now is I'm going to select the Agile tool. Remember, I said well, some organizations that have 5 JIRAs, 2 TFSs, 3 pivotal trackers, one version 1. That's actually the tool, right? So I should select one of each. And right now, in my case, I have all kinds of different tools that I have that I can select from. So I can select JIRA Cloud. I mean, this is the one that where I actually have this project in JIRA. And here I can select, just for a second, if I switch to my Agile, so this is, see the tool, the project called St. Louis News Demo Project. That's the project in JIRA, right, that holds all these stories. So if I switch back to Project Online and I say, okay, let's pick up, so this project comes up in this list with a drop down. So I pick up this project and say save. As for the reference, I can look at, well, what else is linked to my project. Because guess what? I can link one project in JIRA from a specific JIRA, a specific project, linked to my project online, kind of bigger entity, bigger umbrella, right, as a portfolio. But at the same time, I figured that my project is not only that team that is working on that St. Louis newspaper project. There is a couple more teams that are using different other tools, so I can have them all connected and have them all listed here and have their contribution to my overall portfolio umbrella. So in this case, this is flexible in terms of I can connect many different projects that is relevant to my bigger portfolio entity, which I would need to kind of report on, right? So when I first create this link, I just basically say, you know what, let's just bring everything from there to my project, and now it's going to bring all of these items into my project schedule, and it tells you basically when I actually started this. I don't really have to do anything except just creating this link, because it's from that point, as soon as you do something on that JIRA side, if you move something to something, if you add an assignee or if you add a new story, this project will, on a real-time basis, will send those new changes, whether it's created new story or change the story status. It will feed that information right to the PPM. So now if I go and look at my schedule, see, it's already showing this information in my schedule. So if I would have, remember I said I'm going to connect to JIRA Cloud, right? If we were to connect to a JIRA on premises or whatever, something else that is on that list, and grab those different projects, it would be a different sumber task, and underneath will show all the objects from that from the story. And you see all these fields here to do the story, the issue keys. We have about 20 or so different fields that are actually mapped with the actual Agile tool. So this Agile information becomes part of the EPM, PMO information. So every time we change this to-do from to-do to complete, let's actually do that. So if I go and say, well, these 2 stories are done, for example, and go back to my project, it's going to take a few minutes to propagate through the universe of the internet, and then from JIRA Cloud to Microsoft Cloud, and do that. It will refresh this information and update the status. And also, when it's done, when the issue is thrown to done, it's going to also set the percent complete is 100% for the relevant task on that item. If you also noticed, it also brings over the resources. So it also brings over those resources. So if I have myself assigned in that story in JIRA, right, it also recognizes me or recognizes that resource and assign that resource to this task. So this person, so right now I'm assigned to these two stories, the St. Louis story and St. Louis book. If I go and open my timesheet, St. Louis book and St. Louis story, right there, ready for me to put my time against it. So, quick recap. I can work in JIRA. I don't even know about the EPM solution. I know that I have one link that I go click and then fill out my timesheet. And I also know if I am assigned to a story, this item will show up on my timesheet. So you have minimum communication from those Agile teams, allowing them to work in their ecosystem of Agile tools and bringing this information without changing their process, without changing their operational model, to bring this information all the way to the EPM space and then blending it with corporate information. You can do some of these reports that the Trav is about to show. Let's go and refresh. If I did do the percent complete, just make sure. Did that. So I refresh. Please work. Yeah, all right, it did. Okay. All right, so I see those two are now 100%. So that's basically in a nutshell. I think I ran out of time, we'll be happy to do a deeper dive into this. As many times as you would like. Again, just let Daniel know. He will schedule all kinds of calls with you, and we'll be happy to show everything. And other than that, thanks so much. And any questions before we close?
How's the integration with Planner?
The Planner is going to be the other item on the list. With the Planner, there's a couple of more options available, additional options, if you will, because since this is a part of the Office 365, you can actually use the flow to integrate without creating, heavier enterprise scalable solution, basically like this. The Planner would be like a Kickstarter for the project, where you can initiate the original form, original set of tasks from the Planner to the PPM. But the Planner, it either can work the same way as this, like when you have something in Planner, figure it out, move to complete, that will update this thing the same way exactly. Or it can build a very quickly one without even any additional extra tool. But just because the Planner is part of the Office 365 and it's very blended already in the ecosystem of the flow, which is the new integration mechanism for the Office 365. You know what I mean? I'm talking about the flow. You see, just a flow Microsoft Office 365, you'll find some very out-of-the-box integrations already there. So,
we lock percent complete. So you can't adjust. Does that conflict with this?
You may drive to sorry. you might drive the percent completion either based on the entry on the integrated mode of entry, the information timesheet. This is my father calling. He wants to get a hold of me. He gets a hold of me, but just hold on a second. So it can be driven off of the timesheets. When you say remaining work is 0% complete is done, and you submit this timesheet. But remember, when you submit the timesheet, you submit the assignment update on the particular assignment. You may not be the only one on that task who's actually completing the task. You may say that your part is done on that task, but it doesn't necessarily mean that the entire task is done. And for the regular user, there's no way to know whether someone else is actually also assigned on the same task. So you can configure this, the 60i tool, to say, okay, updated percent complete on the status done or not, or you can just enable or disable this feature, right? So you may say, you know what, I'm not going to drive the percent completion of my tasks based on the status on that workflow where the issue is, on the done, not done. Well, there's the whole cake of complexities underneath of the, of that done status, because not every workflow in JIRA is the same. And you can have like variety of different workflows and the way the statuses go and the Kanban boards and stuff like that. So it's all configurable. And you can say, you know what, I want to drive the 100% completion on my task based on a particular status on that grid of statuses. And that could be not just the basic in progress, new, in progress, and done. It could be like 5 different steps. So, David, you want to ask something? Okay. All right. Any other questions online? Anybody there online? Unmute. Say hey. That's the sound of the internet. All right. Well, thanks everyone, and appreciate for coming. And thanks everyone who is online. Please feel free to submit any questions. Folks here in St. Louis, thanks for coming to this session. We'll have another session in 15 minutes. Other than that, thank you so much. I appreciate it.